Why would anyone want to set up a climate action network in the West Midlands? Well, for people just like me. I'm really concerned about our current climate, and it's starting to get really serious. It isn't just governments that can make a difference. We can each do something in our own way. Together with my friend Anna, I set up the blog A Zero Waste Life, which aims to show people how they can live whilst producing less landfill waste. We started the blog because we were shocked at how only 9% of plastic currently gets recycled. The rest remains in our environment in some way or another. And the act of producing plastic itself actually contributes to carbon emissions as well. The blog contains lots of hints and tips on zero waste living, from recipes to how-to videos. I've also started an allotment where I grow things that I struggle to find plastic-free, such as lettuces, sweet corn and tomatoes, and hopefully next year I'll be fully self-sufficient from it. But of course, it isn't just me. There are a lot of different people doing a lot of different things to help stop a dangerous climate change. From people changing the way their house is insulated and so saving energy, to businesses that operate locally to save needless travel. There are shops that cut out plastic waste, to educationalists from primary schools to universities. From councillors to people who advocate cycling and walking to work, and people who want to change our food system for the better. And these people aren't alone in what they do. That's why we have the network, to help spread good ideas around. So let's have a look at what they do.
Climate change is happening now. It's something that's been speculated for years, but the reality is we're feeling the effects on the environment today. It feels too big, but really we can all make individual small changes that will have an impact. Whether that's eating less meat, eating less dairy, whether that's not using single-use plastics, whether that's shopping locally, whether that is using renewable energy suppliers and looking at your own insulation on your home. All these things can be done individually, and it's the sort of questions I'm getting as a local council about how to advise people on making those changes in their life.
My wife and I, we live in South Birmingham, and I'm going to be telling you about 4 things which we do to try to reduce our carbon footprint. The main thing is we have insulated our house, and we've got PV panels and solar water heating panels, which reduces substantially our use of fossil fuel based energy. Secondly, we try to live locally to the greatest extent possible. I have an allotment, we have a wildlife garden, we try and walk and take the bus everywhere, and if we travel distance we would try and go by train. So by living locally we avoid the need to fly and have holidays in the continent or farther away. And diet and avoiding eating meat is important in reducing our carbon footprint. And finally, we do try to tell other people about what we're doing, and we open our house regularly so that people can see things which we've done in our house and can visit our garden.
With this house, we had it empty for 6 months, so we could do as much as we possibly could insulating it. So we put, obviously, loft insulation in as much as possible, like that. We put cavity wall insulation in. That's a no-brainer. Very cheap, both of those. And then we did something further. We added about that thickness of insulation to the inside of the walls, called dry lining them. So now we lose virtually no heat through the walls and virtually nothing through the loft.
At the shop we sell all types of products without any packaging, so the idea is for the customer to bring reusable containers, and this is sort of the concept is circular economy, so reusing rather than disposing of things within a matter of minutes. Plastic is a serious problem with the environment. We discard it, it blows around in the wind and in the rain, it gets into rivers and lakes, and then it ends up in the ocean where it can cause havoc with aquatic environments. So by cutting it down, it makes a real big impact. The shop's situated in what's called the Old Bank building. It's part of Custard Factory. Originally, it was one of the first Lloyds banks in the country, I think, built in about 1860. So yeah, pretty much the only building that was here at the same time was the old Crown next door.
I'm Kate Smith and I'm the leader of Slow Food in Birmingham. Birmingham is a group within the UK and within an international organisation called Slow Food. Their ethos is good, clean and fair food for all, and we work with producers and chefs and anybody who eats. We want to educate people into repairing the food system. It's a group of volunteers and it works with other groups and with individuals who want to make a difference. We run taste events where we talk to people about what real food tastes like, so that they can then make informed decisions about what they're buying and what they're cooking. We work with chefs as part of an Ark of Taste, which is a virtual ark of food that if we don't use it, we're going to lose it. And that includes biodiversity and sustainable practices. The difference between slow food and fast food is it's not about the length of time that you take to cook something. It's about who's produced it. If it's made from small local producers, and these are people who use sustainable farming methods, and it's a way of getting to know the person who's produced. Fast food, that's why it was called slow food. It is the absolute opposite of fast food.
We do the work that we do for the sake of wildlife for itself, but we also know that a natural environment needs to be healthy to support a healthy population of people. We know that having a healthy ecosystem provides a huge number of benefits for people, ranging from managing floodwaters, and we've seen floods increasing over the last few years and damaging a lot of people's properties and having a huge impact. And having natural flood management systems in place in urban areas is absolutely crucial to preventing that from happening again. We also know that the natural environment can be part of the mix in improving air quality. It isn't the solution, but it can certainly help improve air quality. There have been lots of studies that show that just planting simple ivy screens can actually absorb some of those dangerous particles. So we know that then having a healthy natural environment is really important. It's important as well for our health and well-being. We know that people feel better, they feel happier, they feel less stressed when they can see nature or when they have regular access to nature. So it's really important for us.
My role at the University of Warwick is basically around behaviour change, so educating staff, students, visitors to reduce their carbon emissions. Also looking at things like the education, health and well-being, food as well. Basically working with all the departments across the university to have a positive impact on our local environment. We've got a global problem at the moment that the climate is changing. We're getting more extremes of weather, both hot and cold. Overall, the temperature of the UK and the globe is warming, so we're seeing more flooding events, we're seeing more colder winters, we're seeing a lot of snaps between the two as well, and we're also seeing unusual events like tornadoes in Birmingham and things like that.
I write education material for councils and businesses that help children to engage with their parents and change behaviour on issues that affect the environment, how we live, how we should care about our actions. The books are paid for by councils and businesses as part of their social responsibility to the community. They also want families to engage and care about their actions and change their behaviour at source. But what families need to do is to be educated why we do these things so that they can help protect the planet. When we were at school, sustainability and a lot of the climate change issues didn't exist. And children are coming home being taught one thing at school, but it's important that parents are upskilled to understand what children are doing. And we've found from the evaluations of the work we've done that parents do change their behaviour once they understand why we do these things, instead of just being told to do them.
So why do we need air? Because it makes you breathe.
It's oxygen.
Why do we need air to clean air? What happens if we haven't got clean air, Fizz?
We die.
Because we might die.
We might die. Why?
Regarding energy saving and waste and water and biodiversity and transportation, all of the issues around sustainability, I write teacher training programs which convey these messages to teachers and give them lesson plans and other things so that they can take them back to schools and teach the children the messages. When people come to events, they're usually the converted, but with these books we're able to reach the non-converted. We're able to reach people that knew nothing about it at all, and from all different cultures, all different communities. The problem that we have is that councils haven't got the budget to reach the parents in this way on their own. It's only by working with people like Ash and with companies that sponsor for us that we can actually do something this big and make a difference. It's really important that people get out of their cars and start looking at different modes of transport because of pollution. Pollution is actually, at the moment, really threatening the health of our children and of the general public at large. And if we don't do something about it, we're going to end up being like Delhi and then even China in 20 years' time. Pollution is very dangerous. The levels are very high in Birmingham. We're one of the 10 worst, so we need to do something. I obviously teach global issues and why it's also important to the climate that we reduce our CO2. So not only is reducing the amount of time to use your car useful for pollution and reduction, it's useful for CO2 because obviously CO2 will affect the climate quite dramatically as well, and it's one of the biggest threats that we face today is climate change.
Not in terms of wealth, not in terms of money, but in terms of... I'm here as a trade unionist and an environmental activist, and I believe that we're living through an unprecedented environmental crisis, and that needs direct, urgent and major response from government institutions. One of the ways that the trade union movement is trying to address this is by arguing for the creation of 1 million jobs, what we call climate jobs, that help reduce the emissions from British industry, from energy generation, from homes, from businesses and so on, through the creation of a national climate service akin to the National Health Service. The idea being that we can direct national resources into sectors of the economy that need the creation of jobs to help reduce their environmental impact.
I'm a community activist, and I got into trying to solve the issue of homelessness, which led to the issue of housing, which then led me to other issues of energy poverty, and I've always been interested in the environment. And when you look at housing, you see that the problems that we face are to do with investment. Too much investment is skewed towards the idea of £2.5 trillion worth of housing stock that does nothing. It takes away investment from business. If we simply took even 10% of that and put it into renewable energy, we could create 1 million climate jobs, which would fundamentally change the nature of our society and our country for the better.
Here at the stables, we're a makerspace. We're a community makerspace, we like to think. And what we're trying to do is to encourage creativity within the local community. That's turning itself into people coming here running their own creative businesses. And I think in terms of our input is to create an environment to allow those creative businesses to flourish.
I make and repair instruments, and I've been doing it here for about 18 months now. So I live locally to Walsall, and I source a large majority of my equipment and tooling from other local businesses. So I walk to work most days. It's easy and convenient. It's only a 10-minute walk from home, and I get to stretch my legs. So all my raw materials, I don't waste any. Whatever doesn't get used on an instrument gets saved. I tend to store them in boxes, and I'll use them for inlays, decoration, sometimes just for wood dust for filling and repairing on other instruments.
We've been here at the stables for about 2 years. And in that 2 years, we've grown from 0 to about 10 creative residencies. I think in the future, we're starting to burst at the seams. We'd probably like to see a larger facility where we can bring more people in. We work with a lot with local people, so they don't have to travel far. And we have old, we have young, we have well-off, we have less well-off, we have male, we have female. And it's a real interesting chemistry. So success to us is that those businesses become successful in their own right, and that'll reflect back on us and in creating the environment for them.
So I'm a Director for Community Energy Birmingham. We are a society for community benefit, obviously based in Birmingham, and we install renewable energy on community buildings, primarily solar PV panels. Globally, there's a need to conserve energy due to climate change, so we all need to be reducing our carbon emissions and therefore energy use across the globe, particularly in Birmingham because we're a community organisation, so we're very much focused on community level. It's about making energy more affordable, cleaner energy, renewable energy for local organisations.
So we're not in a pub building, but we like to see ourselves as a bit of a community pub, really, in our sort of outlook, our philosophy, and acts as a bit of a hub for the local community. The way we source our beer is we try and buy as much of it as possible locally. The closest place we have is literally a spitting distance. It's about 200 yards away. The beer miles are pretty much zero because it comes round on a trolley. And it's a small little community brewery called Rock and Roll. They're vegan, they use all locally sourced ingredients. They have a philosophy called slow beer, which is just taking a gentle approach to brewing, not rushing anything, and coming up with a really good product at the same time. So we did this thing called Menu for Change in conjunction with Slow Foods, which was basically a week. There was 6 days, 5 chefs, and it was bringing together a whole host of local food entrepreneurs, you might call them, and it was coincided with International Zero Waste Week. So the whole principle of the week was that we should reduce to an absolute minimum all of the food that was wasted, whether that be through using forgotten cuts, lesser known sorts of ingredients, or using food that was surplus, food that had been foraged. It was a really great week, bringing together a lot of people into the same place that shared a common interest in raising awareness of a very important issue. So we for the wine offer, we're sort of beer and wine is a sort of big part of what we do as well. We source what is called natural wine, which is it's similar to organic, but there's lots of different levels to it. But it basically means using suppliers and growers and vineyards that are very much in tune with the ecology of their environments, all produced on a very small scale, and it's all natural in the sense it doesn't have any additives, and it's going down really well. We're not perfect, but we do try to kind of, as much as we can, reduce our carbon footprint, whether that be through recycling coffee, recycling our rubbish, like our cardboards. In common with most places these days, we don't have plastic straws, and we also try to lower our carbon footprint through just reducing the number of miles that people have to drive to get the stuff that we sell to us.
And what you've just seen is just the tip of the iceberg. There are people all over the West Midlands doing their bit to help save our climate, and it all adds up, meaning they're making a real difference. It just goes to show that we can go further, faster together.